this provide the minimum requirements for design. Need not be just structural design, any type of design, and it can be any type of production which is guided by the code. The Bureau of Indian Standards, which is headquartered in Delhi, they are the authorized agency in our country to publish codes. Now, the code that is specifically used for basic reinforced concrete design is IS 456. The IS stands for Indian Standard. 456 is a number which is given to this particular code, and 2000 represents the version it came out in the year 2000. Please note, this code will be updated maybe in the coming few years. The handbooks are special documents, again, which are published by the Bureau of Indian Standards, which help the practicing engineers to do calculations fast, or maybe to explain some background information of the codes. The SP16 the title is Design Aids for Reinforced Concrete to IS 456 1978. Please note, when this SP16 had come out, at that time, the use of computers was not there that much, and hence, many of the calculations were actually done manually. To ease the calculations, this design aids were brought out. Although they may not be required if you have a computer software, but as a student, it is always nice to be familiar with this SP16, so that in case if you don't have a computer software, then you can do your calculations based on SP16. Please note, for your exams, you need SP16, and hence both IS 456 and SP16, I strongly recommend that you should have hard copy. And you should be reading them along with the textbook, at least the portions that we are covering. The SP24 is an explanatory document. The title says Explanatory Handbook on the Indian Standard Code. That means the background theoretical information of IS 456 is explained in SP24. The SP34 is a code which is very much used in practice. This gives the detailing of reinforcement. This code, in this basic course, we will be just covering in a cursory level, maybe a few pages. But later on in practice, if you're going into reinforced concrete design, then you will be using this code more often. The IS 875, in short, it is also called the loading code. This provides the different types of loads that need to be considered in design of buildings in general. There are 5 parts to it. We will be just having a look on the part 1 and part 2. The part 1 is related to dead loads. Now, what is meant by dead loads? The loads that do not change with time or space. Say, the self-weight of the members. See, reinforced concrete itself is a heavy material. Hence, we need to consider its weight in our calculations. Now, over the members, we can be placing some additional load, maybe some tiles, maybe some walls, partition walls, and those loads are considered to be permanent, and hence they will be treated as dead loads. Part 2 is imposed loads, which is also called live loads, means they can change with time, they can shift. However, they are not considered to be dynamic loads. What is dynamic load? Dynamic load means which vary with time very fast. The live load is still considered to be a static load that even if it changes, its variation is very slow, and we do not need to treat that as a dynamic load. Apart from part 1 and part 2, there are 3 other parts which we are not going to cover here. Part 3 is related with wind load, part 4 is related with snow loads, and part 5 is miscellaneous loads. Now please note this part 1 and part 2, we will not be covering them line by line. We'll be giving you an exposure and you have to go through the material. These are pretty self-explanatory. Once you get an exposure, you can go through those material. The next code, IS 10262, this is related with how to make concrete. Now, this code you will be studying in more details in the concrete technology course. However, here we will be giving an introduction to this code. There is a corresponding handbook for concrete, making of concrete, that is SP23. Next, I am giving an overview of concrete structures for you to get a feel of what is meant by a structure and what are the different members. This figure from the book by Professor McGregor gives an idea about a building structure. In building, the primary load arises from the slab. What is a slab? Slab is like a two-dimensional horizontal member which supports the occupants, and hence this is the heaviest component of a building. Slabs can be of different types. Here you are seeing the term called joist slab, which is a special type of slab which we cover in the sequel course. In this course, we will be studying this supported slab, a slab which rests on beams. Now, what are beams? Beams are like stiffened members whose depth is typically larger than its width. The load from the slab gets transferred to the beams. From the beams, the load goes to the columns. Columns are vertical members which take down the load to the foundation. Please note the slab on the ground floor, which is called the slab on grade, that is not supported on any beam. That directly rests on the soil, which is also called grade because the soil has to be prepared. It is a special type of preparation needs to be done for the soil to support the slab on grade, or sometimes it is called slab on ground. Another important thing is that a slab can also be supported by a wall. Here you can see that if there is a basement, then we need to make a wall which can be either made up of concrete or it can be made up of masonry bricks. Here the load from the slab directly goes onto the wall, and from the wall it goes to the wall foundation. Another few things are, there are special types of beams, like spandrel beam is a beam which is at the edge, and this type of beam are typically subjected to torsion, and hence this special adjective called spandrel beam. There can be small secondary beams like the door lintel, which is supporting the brick wall above it, and the lintel is provided over any openings like door, or windows. The lintels are just designed separately. These are considered to be small members, whereas the slab, the supporting beams, the columns, and finally the foundation, these are the primary members of the building. The foundation transfers the load to the soil, and the geotechnical engineering course gives the idea about how to analyze the soil for carrying the load. Apart from these main members, we can also have other members like stairs. The stairs we do not cover in this course. It is covered in the second course. We use the term called load path. Load path means how the load gets transferred from the slab to the ground. We need to have an idea about that, because subsequently in our calculations, we need to consider all the loads that come to a specific member. For example, for the beam, the load comes from the slab. For the column, the load comes from the beam. Also, if a slab, if it directly rests on a column, then we need to consider that load also. On the foundation, the load comes from the column. Now, based on this, we are writing the basic components of a building structure. Components of a building based on transfer of gravity loads. First, we have slabs. We can have walls, which can be either masonry or concrete. If a slab directly rests on walls, then the walls are called load-bearing walls, and they need to be designed. Most of the pakka houses that we see in our country, there the slab directly rests on some masonry walls. However, for larger buildings, we go for a framed structure. Framed means it consists of beams and columns. If it is a framed structure, then the load of the slab goes to the beams. From the beams, it goes to the columns. From the columns, it goes to the foundation. From the foundation, it is going to the soil. Now, in this course, we are not covering the soil. This is covered in your geotechnical course. Next, we are seeing another type of structure, which is called the bridges. Although in this course, we will be not covering bridges, but it is nice to have an idea so that some of you may be attending the bridge course and you will be able to correlate the bridge structure with a building structure. In a bridge, the heaviest component is called the deck of the bridge. Deck is actually the slab of the bridge. And here the term is saying main deck, which supports the vehicles running over the bridge. Now this deck gets supported on members like columns. But however, in bridges, we use the terminology piers, which are like very large size columns. In between the piers and the deck, we have to provide some bearings. The bearings are not made up of concrete. They're typically made up of steel or some rubber-like material called elastomeric materials. The bearings are provided so that if there is any expansion or contraction of the slab due to the effect of temperature, then the load should not get directly transferred to the piers. The bearings accommodate that movement. From the piers, the load goes down to the foundation. and foundation pad. And from the pad foundation, it goes down to the soil. At the end of the bridge, the support is called an abutment, because next to an abutment, there will be soil, and hence the abutment carries not only the load from the deck, but also the load from the soil. Hence, if I look into the components of a bridge, the components are slab deck, then beams, or sometimes they are called girders. Then the load passes through the bearings onto the piers or abutment walls. From the piers and abutment, they go down to the foundation, and from the foundation goes down to the soil. Next, coming to the topics of this course. See, the number of this course is 3060. The first topic that we'll be covering is material properties. Please note, this is the first time you are going to study a composite material. Reinforced concrete is made up of the bulk material, which is concrete, and inside that there are reinforcing bars, which are typically made up of steel. Note, concrete itself is a composite material because concrete is made from stones, which are called aggregates, sand, cement, and they are mixed with water, which gives concrete. You will be getting some idea about the concrete in the first few classes, but subsequently the properties of concrete will be more covered in the concrete technology course. For steel bars, we will be limiting ourselves only to the properties which are required for the design of reinforced concrete members. Next, we are going to move on the design philosophies. What is meant by that? Design philosophies means it is the approaches for design of concrete members. Concrete is being designed for more than 100 years, and the method of design has also evolved. Now, we will be covering primarily the working stress method, which was there in the first maybe 50 years of concrete design. But then for most of the course, we will be covering the limit stress method, which is now the current practice in our conventional design. Next, we are going on to study the components of a building based on the action. Now, what is meant by the action that we are talking about? Any structural member is subjected to some kind of forces. If it is bending, then we call that member is subjected to a flexural action. Beams and slabs are primarily subjected to flexural action. Now, along with bending, there is shear, which is called flexural shear. And hence, the beams and slabs have to be again studied for the shear. For some beams, like the spandrel beams, there can be a special type of action, which is called torsion. Although it is not frequently designed for, but still we need to be aware for those special members where there may be torsion. Next, we are studying the columns. Now, columns are primarily subjected to axial load and flexure based on its location under gravity loads. Hence, these columns are studied under a combined actions of axial load and flexure. We will be, of course, covering shear for columns also. Then comes the footings. The footings are subjected to flexure as well as shear, And there can be different types of footings, but in this course, we will be just covering the simplest form, which is called the isolated footings. And an analogous type of footing is also the wall footings. Now, whenever we have two materials put together, we need to make sure that they act together. The reinforcing bars cannot slip inside the concrete. If it slips, then the purpose of reinforcing concrete gets lost. And hence, we need to be aware of a very special property which is between the steel and concrete, that is called bond. Without the bond, we cannot have reinforced concrete to act together. Now, that bond is studied under different subtopics like development length, curtailment of the bars, and splicing. These words right now I am skipping. We will be studying them as we move on. Now, apart from this study of the actions, we also need to study what can be the other problems apart from strength. See, first, a structure has to be made strong, period. At every second, it has to carry the load. Now, apart from strength, there are certain other issues which we need to be aware of. One such issue is the deflection. That if a slab or beam deflects to a perceptible limit, beyond the perceptible limit, then there can be problem. It can crack. The occupants may feel discomforting. Water can get accumulated at one place, which is called ponding of water, especially in the roofs. And hence, the issue of deflection needs to be thought of during design. Next is the crack width. A big problem of reinforced concrete members is the durability issues. What is meant by durability? That if we are designing a structure for say 50 years, it should exist in a good state. We don't want cracks to form through which water can't go inside. Then the reinforcing bars can start rusting. That will have a discoloration of the concrete. And hence, to avoid such problems, we need to make sure that even if the concrete cracks, the crack width or the width of the cracks should be limited so that from the aesthetic point of view, it is not a concern, and from the durability point, also it is not of a concern. Is there any question at this stage regarding the topics? No question?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, tell me.
Sir, you told that we put bearings in between the deck and the piers in the bridge.
Yes.
But the bearing, I think bearing plays role in the horizontal direction. And then how does it accommodate the vertical extension and contractions?
No. Extension and contraction is in the horizontal direction. See, the bearing always is designed for the vertical load, because that is the heaviest load that goes to the pier. However, the extension and contraction is in the horizontal direction. Hence, there has to be some flexibility in the bearing so that while they are transmitting the vertical loads, they are also allowing the horizontal movement. Okay.
Can I just add something?
Yes.
There are two types of bearings. One is elastomeric bearing. Another is PTFE bearing. Okay. This PTFE bearing is basically like you have some material, polyteflon material, and you have a steel cover on that. So these bearings, elastomeric bearings, will allow you to have some movement. Okay, and these PTFE bearings, you have two types of bearings. One is fixed bearing, another one is sliding bearing. Sliding can be transverse direction as well as longitudinal direction. Just for your information. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions regarding
Understood.
regarding the topics that we are going to study? Any clarification required? Else, I am going to move on. Okay. Now what we are going to see is the application of reinforced concrete. Although in this course, we are not going to see the final applications, we are going to study them in a member level or a component level. But unless we study the component level first, we cannot design a full structure. The first type of structures which we already have seen is the buildings. Then we are seeing the bridges. The flyovers are actually coming under bridges. We can have big enclosed spaces like auditorium, stadium. The retaining walls are special structures which are used for the soil pressure. They are termed as geotechnical structures. Liquid storage tanks, they are used for either to store water or liquefied petroleum or any other type of liquid in the chemical industries. Bunkers and silos are structures which are used to store materials like coal, cement, or any other minerals. Chimneys are very tall structures for the exhaust of gases. And then there can be different types of towers, like cooling towers, communication towers. Now we are going to see some few photographs from our country to get a feel of these structures. There can be also hydraulic structures like dams, marine structures like berthing structures, offshore structures, transportation structures like tunnels, concrete pavements. There can be very special structures like nuclear containment structures. This structure, which is now the tallest building in the world, is made of high strength concrete. The Burj Khalifa, the most of it is made up of concrete, except the top, there is some steel. Traditionally, the tall buildings were made up of steel, but with the advent of high strength concrete, that means concrete which are very strong, it has now become convenient to make tall buildings with concrete. In India also, we are having many tall buildings coming up. This will be the tallest building when it is completed, the Palais Royal in Mumbai. A few other buildings also, like Tower 1, the construction has started, and use of concrete is extensive in these tall buildings. Coming to the bridges, this is a very famous bridge in our country, the Pamban Bridge, which is made up of concrete. The main portion of the bridge is here, which accommodates substantial clearance for the ships to go through. And in order to have this clearance, there is this long approach structure, which is also a part of the bridge. The Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium is in Chennai. It was made in a very short period before the South Asian Federation Games. And if you visit the stadium near the Chennai Central Station, from outside itself, you will be able to appreciate that how the different members have been constructed to make this huge structure. The Indira Gandhi Indoor Stadium in New Delhi, here also you can see it is an enclosed stadium. Please note, these members are like ties, which are of course made up of steel. A building need not be just made up of only concrete. It can be a mixed building. That means some of the members can be made up of steel, others can be made up of concrete, or some are made up of concrete, some are made up of timber. Now this stadium is very unique in its design. This is the retaining wall where I had taken students for a field visit. This is a part of the extension of the runway of the Chennai airport. And here you can see that this structure is so huge compared to the persons who are working. From here itself, you can understand that the structures are actually very large. However, when we study them in a class, we show them by small iconic sketches. This is a water tank in Maharashtra. Water tanks are considered to be lifeline structures. I had taken this from an article in the Hindu where they were discussing about the water scarcity in the Vidarbha area. And you can see these little girls are scavenging water from whatever it is leaking from the tank. This is a silo for storing cement. It's an industrial structure, and this type of structures are required in different types of the industry. In a power plant, we will be seeing this structures like the chimneys, cooling towers. Cooling towers are thin shell structures whose the longer dimension to the thickness is very high. The chimneys are very tall structures. Apart from the strength, there is another issue which is called the stability becomes important in these cooling towers and the chimneys. This TV tower in Rameswaram is the tallest freestanding structure in our country. Apart from the tower at the top, the rest of it is made up of concrete. This is the Nagarjuna Sagar Dam. And to quote our first Prime Minister, this is the stepping stone and the symbol of the series of modern temples taken up. Post-independence, lots of dams were made either of masonry or concrete, and they stand as unique structures which are huge, which come under huge projects. This is a photograph from the archive of the construction of the Nagarjuna Sagar Dam. The chief engineers were K.L. Rao and Mir Jafar Ali. And you can see the crew. They appear like ants compared to this tall structure. This is a photograph of a marine structure, a jetty. A jetty is used for unloading materials from ship or other trawlers. This is in the Car Nicobar Islands in Andaman Islands. And next to the jetty, you can see this breakwater. The breakwater is also made up of concrete members called tetrapods. However, this comes under the ocean engineering. The design of the jetty for the sea waves can be very challenging. The tunnel structure in Chennai now, we have this metro constructed. A long part of it is underground, and the construction of this tunnel using this tunnel liners, these are made up of precast concrete. This itself was very challenging. This is a nuclear power plant where this structure is called containment structure, and this is made up of concrete. To end this presentation, I am referring to our institute logo, Siddhir Bhavati Karmaja, which means success comes through action.
Any questions?
Unfortunately, I'm not, when the presentation is going on, I'm not able to communicate with you directly because in my screen, I'm just seeing the presentation.
And
Any questions regarding this? I had one more presentation, but I think the time is short. I can show that sometime later.
And whoever reminded to start recording, I thank him because I forgot to switch on the recording. Anyway, now it is recorded. Amlan, you want to add something?
No, I am actually waiting for their feedback. Yes, Kranti, do you have anything to say?
Yes, sir. Like course outline, the way you explained is very good, sir. Yesterday it was like we were in like bit confusion. It's like a very hurry in situation. Today is like you explained very well, sir.
Yeah, I made it fit, but the document that has been given to you yesterday, that is more structured, and we will be following that. Today I explained it in a more simpler way.
Yes, sir.
And any other comments?
Which loads will be transferred to plinth beams?
I think they may not be aware of plinth beams.
No. This is the question. This is a question from Sai Kiran.
Oh, okay. No, it's a good question. I think it may be a bit too early to talk about plinth beams. We will be covering plinth beams in the sequel course. Plinth beams are special beams which are provided in the ground floor level. They are meant to carry walls. Also, the plinth beams, they connect the columns to make the foundation an integrated foundation. However, the plinth beams do not carry any slab load because unless there is a basement, the slab directly rests on soil. However, if there is a basement, then the slab will be, of course, resting on plinth beams.
Okay, I just want to add some more things. And in case if plinth beam is absent in some kind of building, you may see these settlement cracks in the walls.
Exactly. See, if you just leave the bricks on their own foundation, they tend to crack over a period of time. Hence, plinth beams are recommended so that we can avoid the cracking.
Yeah, all right, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, then for today, I think this is enough. And then tomorrow, I will hand over to Professor Rao to start with the technical part of the subject.
Just
Okay.
wait a minute.
Okay.
So I already sent you Google Meet link for tomorrow's class, 8 o'clock. It is little bit early, but as usual, when if you are inside the campus, you will be attending class at 8 o'clock. So we'll stick to 8 o'clock time. Okay. Yeah.
You tell your parents to wake you up, and provide you breakfast so that you can start at 8 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.